Hi guys, this is Mr. Mori, and yes, I'm using my real voice for the first time in the channel. And today we're here to unravel some of the craziest facts about Catnap in Poppy Playtime. So if you are a Catnap fan, please leave your like in the video, and now let's get to it. We're gonna start by some light facts, things that everyone knows, and then we're gonna descend into deep lore and things that only a few people think about. Fact 1. Catnap was once a kid. This is not so obvious because some characters in Poppy Playtime were adults when they became experiments, but Catnap no. Catnap was a kid called Theodore Grambell and was 7 years old when he became Catnap. Fact 2. Catnap is the only proof of empathy we have coming from the prototype. Catnap was helping the prototype escape Playtime Co, but he was electrocuted, and surprisingly, the prototype came back to help Catnap, and because of it, he couldn't escape. And this is the only time we saw the prototype being the good guy in the whole series. Fact 3. At the same time that the prototype saved Catnap, Catnap only became an experiment because of the prototype. The scientists did not schedule Theodore Grambell as a subject to be a smiling critter. But when he was electrocuted, he automatically became a subject so he could be reborn into Catnap. Fact 4. Catnap was the only carnivore smiling critter. There are X-ray archives showing the insides of Catnap, and he was the only one from the 8 smiling critters to have a body that could only digest meat, since he was built with the anatomy of a big cat. All the others were herbivores or omnivores. Even DogDay, because yes, even though dogs prefer meat, their digestive system can have things that are not meat. So, how crazy must it have been to Catnap to wake up from surgery, actually wake up from being electrocuted, and know that he can never eat broccoli again? I mean, would you like it? Fact 5. Still going on the carnivore fact, it is theorized that Catnap was fed with failed experiments when he was caged in Playtime Co. As he could only eat meat and the scientists had to get rid of the failed experiments anyway, so he may have been forced to eat his former friends. Fact 6. Catnap went through 49 days of brainwashing. Basically, he escaped from his cell one day and ended up killing 6 Playtime Co employees as well as injuring 8 more. He was very much of a rebel and would not accept to be a toy forever, as he should. But the scientist's solution to his behavior was to put him in intense brainwashing, and after 49 days he was fully convinced to be a toy and did not remember that his own name was Theodore. He was only Catnap now. Fact 7. Catnap was considered a perfect experiment. This is very curious since Catnap was experiment 1188 and Bobby Bear Hug was experiment 1186. Although Bobby was considered an extreme fail and Catnap an extreme success by the scientists. Fact 8. The scientists in Playtime Co used to say Catnap had only one flaw, and it was his worship of the prototype. Not even the 49 days of brainwashing made Catnap forget the prototype, and they thought this obsession was not good. And they were right. Fact 9. One of the tapes of chapter 3 mentioned that Catnap enjoys watching his friends sleep. It is theorized, though, that Catnap had extreme insomnia because of eating other experiments. So even though the scientists would say, haha, he likes to see the others sleep, look how funny, reality was way more harsh than that. Catnap just couldn't sleep at all. Fact 10. Catnap and DogDay were created together and were meant to work together to reduce the stress from the kids in the orphanage. DogDay would be the one to cheer them up and Catnap the one to make them sleep with the red smoke. Fact 11. Catnap and DogDay were once best friends. I know, it's hard to believe that since we know what Catnap did to DogDay, but there are official images proving that, and even in DogDay's house there is a picture of them hugging together. Unfortunately, their relationship came to an end when DogDay stood against the prototype who Catnap considered a god. Fact 12. Catnap may have been gaslighting DogDay into thinking that every smiling critter died. We may discover more of that in the future since it is theorized that Bobby Bear Hug and Picky Piggy are still alive, but DogDay tells us that he is the last one of the smiling critters. How could he know exactly since he was chained to the wall the whole time? The only explanation is someone told him that. Fact 13. Catnap is the only character in Poppy Playtime who can speak, but doesn't do it a lot. We have Huggy Wuggy and Kissy Missy who don't speak at all, and on the other side, we have Mummy Longlegs, Poppy, Miss Delight, and many others who speak a lot. But Catnap is the only one who is able to speak, but almost never does. When he does speak though, he has a harsh voice. It is theorized that this is because of the red smoke system implanted in his throat. The scientists probably replaced vocal cords to put the red smoke system there. Also, red smoke's flammable, so it's not something you should have on your throat, so he can speak, but he probably avoids it since it hurts. Fact 14. Catnap was 43 years old when he died. Yes, since 1899 was the year that Theodore Grambell became Catnap and he was 7 years old at the time, and the game Poppy Playtime happens in 2005, 16 years later, it means that Theodore would be 23 years old in 2005. And yeah, guys, don't call him old. Remember that in 2005, Poppy was already 56 years old and bald. Fact 15. Catnap's death continues to be a big theory. His final scene is ambiguous. Some people say he sacrificed himself to the prototype. Others say he thought the prototype was given his hand to help him and then betrayed him. In my opinion, in chapter 5, we see how strong the prototype is, so if he really cared for Catnap, he could have saved Catnap, but he didn't, so for me, that's the answer. Fact 16. A mistake in the game production made Catnap's lore more interesting. In chapter 3, the developers had an idea on how the prototype should look, but they did not have the exact design. So when we finally see the prototype in chapter 5, it is very different from the shrine that Catnap built. This could be a big fail, but it got even more interesting since there is no evidence in the story that Catnap ever saw anything from the prototype besides his hand. In his drawings, and even on his final scene, he only sees the hand. So the shrine could only be so different from the real prototype because Catnap never really saw him, only heard him. Fact 17. Catnap was the reason why Mummy Longlegs became an experiment. Mary Payne, the kid behind Mummy Longlegs, was one of the kids in the orphanage who suffered paranoia from Catnap's red smoke. Because of this, the scientists decided to use her as subject. Fact 18. Catnap's escape from cell and injuring a lot of Playtime Co employees may have been what gave the Hour of Joy idea to the prototype. He thought, let's do the same thing that Catnap did, but bigger. And it worked. Fact 19. Catnap becomes skinnier as chapter 3 goes. One of the reasons is that Catnap has to eat. Just like all the other experiments, he even does that in the chapter with a poor, clumsy experiment. The other reason is how hurt he became after the last encounter with the player. So yeah, he became like skinny-inny. Fact 20. Catnap and Miss Delight were once enemies and then friends. They were enemies at first because Catnap locked out the teacher sisters in the school, probably following the prototype's orders. After starvation, Miss Delight was the only survivor and made a deal with Catnap. They would not keep secrets from each other in exchange of the prototype's protection. So yeah, they were kind of besties. And now a special fact to end the video. Catnap is the ultimate fan favorite in the Poppy Playtime fandom. So if you also like Catnap just like me, please consider subscribing to the channel and leave a comment telling me which fact you liked the most. And also tell me if you have a fact that I didn't cover in the video. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye!